What is currently at stake? What are we currently fighting for this time around?
Mostly the same things, actually. It's AI in the industry. So before it was the introduction of AI into the industry, but the rebuttal to not getting enough protections in 2023 is that nobody knew what AI was really going to be capable of, so they couldn't really
Right.
negotiate robust protections. Disagree. I call BS. I flag that. But this time around, it's the same thing where it's AI in the industry. How can we protect our performers from being exploited? And it's more pay stuff. It's more like
It's
minimums and how do we make the bar more accessible for people to get the benefits, the pension benefits, and the health benefits that SAG has to offer. Pretty much the same stuff.
it's similar. There's definitely some overlap. I look at it this time, and this is just my opinion. I don't know that anybody's formally said this, but to me, it seems like this time around, AI is the big ticket item. Where before it was the residuals was like 1A and AI was 1B. This time it seems like AI is 1A. Outside of that,
Okay.
everyone's fighting for inflation related increases because things have changed since the last 3 years. They're looking for an increase to the minimums again as a result of things that have changed with inflation and healthcare boosts. And I think it's interesting because you pointed out you don't think it was enough protections last time. One of the things that's coming up here as well is this idea of zombie contracts, which is kind of what the situation was last time, and we're trying to prevent that from happening this time, because when you have like an old deal that was set up like it was last time for residuals on TV, and you didn't know that streaming was ever going to be a thing, and then streaming shows up, and now you're just kind of stuck because you're in this contract where it's like, yeah, you get paid all this stuff for TV residuals. You're like, yeah, but that's not a thing anymore. Now there's a different thing. We're also trying to fight for this idea of protection when there's something that you can't account for that shows up. How do you address that with you just don't
Right.
leave people stuck in this outdated contract that doesn't even make sense or apply anymore? So those
So
seem to
this
be the
is
big things.
this is something that I think is always going to be hotly contended in a negotiation because the producers are protected. The AMPTP is protected because they typically have to pay for usage, and your usage, depending on the project, differs. For something like film and TV, the usage is in perpetuity, and that's why residuals are a thing. For those of you out there that don't know what an in perpetuity clause is, because I had to get educated, it's the worst version that you can think of because
Because it's forever.
the way that it's actually worded is they have the rights forever throughout the universe indefinitely. Like that's the actual wording. And it means
Yeah.
exactly what you think it means in the worst possible terms, because it means that they have the rights to do whatever they want with it for the rest of time throughout the universe. Like it's literally spelled out. And people seem to think that this isn't like legitimate or it's not literal. It is. It's 100% literal. So for film and TV, the rights are in perpetuity. For commercials, there's usually a time frame. The most typical time frame is 1 year or 2 years. Sometimes you see the occasional 5 year contract, and typically they come with a renewal rate. So if you want to renew past the usage term, you can renew for the same usage term at X rate. This is a problem because as soon as actors get involved with a project, they don't have any say in what happens with the final product, which is what residuals are supposed to cover. Residuals are supposed to cover my ongoing involvement in the success of a project. But beyond that, actors don't actually have protections, and it's totally in favor of the production company. So this is where you come to a hotly contended crossroads because if I, the production company, come up with this idea for a project, like Jason and I have, we've come up with an audio drama that we want to eventually produce. I don't, I mean, like, I haven't had this discussion with Jason, but I imagine that we'll want to retain full rights to that project. And I think that
What?
that's reasonable. Disney
No,
has the
I
same
want to give it
mindset.
to I want to give it to Disney
Oh, okay.
at no without any compensation.
Cool.
I
So
just want to give it to him out of the spirit of the kindness of my heart.
just because you think that they'll be generous in return.
No, I don't. I
So,
just want
but,
to take my hard blood, sweat, and tears and just hand it
and
over to
just
someone.
give
That
it
sounds great.
away.
They can have it
But
forever.
that's like,
Yeah.
but that's essentially what the actor's position is in every single project negotiation because Disney or Universal or Netflix basically says, well, we conceptualize this idea and we're bringing you in to help bring that to life, but you don't own any of the intellectual property about it. So actors are left with, well, so then, but what is my protection if this project is successful? Well, you don't have any.
I, I I think I think what you're talking about is blending a couple of different things. So like when you're talking about IP stuff, or are you talking about
Well,
the likeness
It's
thing?
every it's everything because when you sign on to a project, um, there's a clause in there that says that the intellectual property belongs to production company, whatever the production company is, and there's a likeness release. So there's a I give permission for my likeness, my voice, my image to be used in relation to this project for whatever the terms are for film and TV that's in perpetuity forever.
Yeah, I don't know how much of that is being fought for now. Like what I understood is well, a lot of the concern now was when studios are trying to do, body scans, voice cloning, a lot of the stuff that is happening with AI. This way they can use that for a supplemental projects as time goes by, which they want to keep the rights to. So the actor comes in, films movie number one, they
Mhm.
get scanned, they get, cloned, all this other stuff. And then the studio says, now it's time to do a series on our streaming platform. And we don't want to bring the actor back in to do those. So we have
Right.
all these scans. Let's just make this without them. And now I don't have to pay them. And
Right.
this, to me, seems like it's very obviously not okay.
Well, so this is like, I guess, my hat of neutrality again, but from the production side of it, it's really not actually all that different because if we look at
I think
what
it
you would
is.
typically sign away in terms of a regular project, so I sign on to Stranger Things just happened, right? So I sign on to be an actor for Stranger Things. I sign all the same stuff where my likeness, my voice can be used in perpetuity for that project. They can
But I
use
think
it to remake.
there's a difference I think between using it in perpetuity with that project. So like Harry Potter, right? Big franchise. You have the actors that played the core kids in that, and
Mhm.
20 years down the road, they're installing a new Universal ride at Universal Studios, and they need some kind of throwback to the Harry Potter thing, and they're using it based off that first movie. And they're like, "Well, we need a clip from this movie." I understand where you're saying like, "Hey, we need you to sign off on the perpetuity clause because there's stuff where these characters are frozen in time, but we may need them for other things down the road." To me, that is different, and you can squabble about how to what extent, but that's different than I need to take your likeness, your ability, your essence and hold on to it in case I want to create a new project, a second, like let's make an additional Harry Potter movie. And we don't want to call Daniel Radcliffe in to play it. We just want to use AI, have them train based off the previous movies and create this new thing. And we don't
Mhm.
have to pay him because he didn't actually come in to do that. That is a different thing to me. And that is way worse in my mind than just keeping it for, hey, we're doing a re-release and now we have to put up some promotional stuff using the original footage, and we
Yeah.
we
This
we
is
don't want to
where,
have to go through hoops in order to use it. That's a way different thing to me, and I think that is should be a very firm line that you can't do that. I mean, that doesn't sound ethically right, I would think, by most people's standards.
well, the thing is, the contract negotiation isn't just determined by what most people think. It is determined by what the two parties agree to. And
Sure.
this is why I specifically think that the AI protections that were fought for were ultimately meaningless in the last strike because If I want to use previously captured film or previously captured videography from a project and repurpose it for a marketing campaign today, I could do that. I could technically do that because of the way these contracts are framed in favor of the production company because they own the intellectual property. Now, I, as Daniel Radcliffe, might have had some sort of marketing clause that says if you do that, I get to make X amount of money. But that's again something that you negotiate in your contract. And I
Sure.
actually, if I'm looking at it from the production company's standpoint, I don't actually see how leveraging AI is different than if I just use some old footage and repurpose it. And that's what I think the sticking point is and what the contention is going to be. Because for me, from the production company's standpoint, I don't, there isn't a clear difference that can be drawn. And what SAG needs to do is they need to say the difference is that you are generating new content. You're not
Right.
repurposing old content. You are generating new content that, in order to get in a different way, you would have to bring the actor back.
Right. Yeah, and I agree. I think that that should be the firm line because obviously in a negotiation, both sides are going to get something and both sides are going to have to give something up. That's the purpose, right? Nobody is supposed to walk away from this going, it's perfect. I got everything I wanted because that's not a negotiation. So if you have to make a concession, I think that's where it is. The concession is, look, if you're repurposing old footage for some sort of defined use case, that's one thing. If you need to create new footage or new stories from something, that needs to include some sort of residual consent, actor bringing back. I mean, something like you can't just take that and go, well, we'll plug it into the machine and they'll produce it. And
Yeah.
here's an interesting thing. Typically, the contract negotiations happen every 3 years. The last time when this happened, the provisions around
Well,
AI
wait. Hold on.
specifically,
It's not, just for clarity for the audience, it's not typically. It's every 3 years. The contract is for 3 years.
yes, I will get to my point, but typically is used in there with intention. So, um, 3 years is what it's supposed to be. Last time, the AI provisions, the wins that the unions got was that studios could not force writers to use AI, and AI could be used by writers with their consent. And there were certain limitations on how and when the AI could be used. Now, what studios did, though, is they found a loophole. The studio made the case that, hey, we own this IP. We can do what we want with it. And they found a loophole to say, well, because we own this IP, we can use AI for our own IP because it's our property. And what they did is they contracted companies to make their own library, their language models based on their in-house library of IP, and use AI for that, which people didn't see coming because again, it's like an early stage of a thing. And they're like, wait, we thought these were using just general language models. Now you're curating it this way. You can use this and kind of fill in between the lines. So they're proposing this year that part of these negotiations is that we don't do a contract negotiation again for 5 years. And they're billing it as the added security. You know, we don't have to do this again for a while, some additional stability. But my
Wait,
concern is
who's arguing for that?
the studio is saying let's make a deal for 5 years. This way we don't have to come back to the
Okay.
table in 3 years. And they're saying
Okay.
this will provide both sides with additional security, additional stability, and we don't have to do this again, right away.
Uh-huh.
But my concern is that they want this because there's another loophole thing that they're hoping that they can find in that process. And then the writers and actors will get stuck in this for an additional 2 years before they can even come back to the table and try to fight it. And I don't know what that is or what it's going to be, but if that's the decision that the guild ends up agreeing to, I hope that everyone has crossed their T's and dotted their I's to make sure that we are not signing up for something that is going to pigeonhole everybody. Because
Hmm.
with AI in particular, it is growing so fast that I don't know what's going to be possible in 1 year, let alone 3 or 5. So to
I
set that
think
time length up for 5 years where you can't go back to the table in that time frame, that seems like a big risk to me.
I hadn't heard that specific thing that they were looking to do a 5-year contract instead of a 3-year contract. I don't think it's outside the realm of oddities, or I don't think it is an oddity. Like, I don't think it's outside the realm of what is acceptable in a contract because, like I said, there are 5-year commercial contracts that you can get into as a performer. So I don't think like 5 years as a contract is necessarily outrageous, but I do think that given the fact that AI is the um, topic of the day, and with how much it is progressing so quickly, I think that that could be very detrimental for creatives, very
Yeah.
beneficial to the production companies, the AMPTP, but I I would be curious to know what SAG's stance is. There seems to be a general sentiment in the world, not just in the entertainment community, that AI is just here to stay and there's nothing we can do about it, which if you've watched our previous episodes, you know that I strongly disagree with this stance. There's definitely something you can do about it, but let's put that aside and let's look at it from SAG's point of view, which is that it's not going anywhere and that they're not going to be able to stop companies from using it, which is a true statement, right? You can't strong arm somebody into not using AI, try as I might. So Sean Astin, who's the president of SAG, recently went to a conference with a bunch of production companies.
I think it was CES, wasn't it? I think it was
Oh,
I thought it was CES,
maybe.
which is the Consumer Electronics Show. So it's
Oh,
not
okay.
specific to theater and filmmaking, but it is where new technologies usually get showcased and
Got it.
people kind of get first sights on them.
Okay. So he went to this conference and apparently had a whole bunch of discussion with people about what that is looking like, what new things are coming out, and specifically how these companies are leveraging AI. And he made a statement on social media on behalf of the SAG membership where he was saying that all of the conversations that he had been having were good conversations and that he was feeling confident about the upcoming negotiations. I think there are definitely people who are going to see a message like that and be bolstered by that statement. I saw that statement and essentially saw like flashbacks to 2023 and that we were about to do a repeat in terms of we're not going to fight. We're not going to fight for the protections that we need. I feel like it's going to be another rollover where we will strike. It will be a formality of sorts so that SAG can say that they struck on behalf of the membership to get these protections, but I don't think that they're actually going to go in with any hard line on AI. And if it were me, my hard line would be no AI, period. And from there, if that's your hard line, from there, you can negotiate and be like, okay, how do you want to use AI? And we'll figure out if it's like an acceptable use of AI. But if you go in already saying, like, I know you're going to use AI, so let's figure it out. Like, you need to have a hard line.